Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode weekly podcast interview every single week. I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses. They're out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, their families, as well as make a big impact on others. And you guys, today I've got a very special rock star guest, as always, here on the GSD Mode Podcast. This is our guest's third time here on the podcast, and there's a reason. There's very few people that we have back multiple times on the podcast, and those that I do ask to come back, not just twice, but especially three times, are absolute badasses that I look up to as my personal mentors as well, and are doing huge things in their business. So today, you guys, we have Chantel Ray here on the podcast, a good personal friend of mine. I've known Chantel for almost a decade now. I've flown out to Virginia Beach multiple times to be able to shadow her real estate team and see what she's up to, and I've learned so much from her over the years. She's one of the best real estate agents I've ever met, best team leaders, and now she has decided to not just take her team, but take her brokerage nationally and eventually globally, and is up to some big moves, big transitions, big shifts, and continues just to blow my mind and is absolutely crushing it. So in today's episode, you guys, in today's interview, Chantel breaks down so many things. One thing that I love about Chantel is she's got to be one of the, if not the best person in the real estate game that I've seen at execution. So she breaks down how she executes, how she gets her staff to execute. Like, look, while other people are still thinking if they're going to implement something, she already has it implemented and done, right? So how to go out there and execute, what she is doing to go out there and shift in this changing real estate climate of ours to continue to grow, to continue to expand, how she gets her team going out there and again, executing, but not just making sure that they're executing, also making sure that she's got the right people in the right seats in the organization. And we break down so many different things in this interview. So I'm really excited for you guys to learn from this. I know you're going to love it. Now, real quick though, before we jump into this amazing podcast interview, if you are interested, if you're a real estate agent, team leader, or brokerage owner, and you are interested in being mentored and coached by me personally in your real estate business for the next 12 months of your life, make sure to check out masterybootcamp.com. This is my personal coaching and mentorship program. We've had over 4,000 real estate agents, team leaders, and broker owners come through this program over the years, and it's an opportunity for you to be mentored and coached by me personally to help you massively explode and grow your real estate business. So again, masterybootcamp.com. Lastly, if you, again, in the real estate business and real estate space niche, and you are looking for the most effective and affordable website CRM platform that exists in the industry, make sure to check out perfectstormnow.com. This is the website and CRM that I have, that I utilize in my team, and has allowed my team to become one of the top teams in the entire nation. So again, perfectstormnow.com. All right, guys, let's dive into this amazing podcast interview with my good friend, Chantel Ray. All right, Chantel Ray, my good friend, welcome back to the podcast. I think this is our third jam session here.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So good to see you. You're one of my favorite people on earth.
Yeah, no, right back to you. And you've been a great friend, a great mentor of mine, great personal friend as well. And always love jamming with you. And, one thing I love about you is your preparation and your commitment to excellence. Yeah, right. More than any agent, broker, team leader that I've ever met, it's when it comes to those things, like, you're always bringing massive value. You're always extremely prepared, and your commitment to excellence is really above anybody's I've seen in this industry. You're the first guest that I've ever had on that delivers. All right, here's the impact I want to have. Here's the talking points that we need to go through and want to go through, and I just love it, man. It's and obviously that translates into your business being one of the top team leaders here in the country and just continuing to dominate. So with that being said, let's rock and roll. I know that we got some topics here to cover, and I'm just gonna rock and roll with it. And so the first thing is, how do you anticipate the future as a leader in this time? Like, what are you doing with everything going on with COVID and the riots and all the changes that we're seeing? Like, what are you doing to pivot and adapt What do you think the future of this industry looks like?
Yeah, so I always say what you're doing won't last forever. And so it's like, if you don't believe me, ask taxi cab companies, Kodak, Blockbuster, Border Books, right? Like, if we're not changing, we're falling further behind. And so, the way that I had wanted to grow originally was I said, okay, I'm just going to grow offices. That was my original plan. So I said, okay, I'm going to every time, like I started my first location was Virginia Beach. Then we opened in Newport News, then in Chesapeake, and we grew to 7 locations. And every time we grew, it was like such a slow growth, right? Because every time it'd be like I had to hire a manager and then an admin for the office. And then I had to do build out. And it was just like I like to do a really nice job on the build out and stuff. So it was costing, each office could cost anywhere from, 50,000 to 100,000, depending on the furniture and all of that stuff. And it was just in my mind, I was like, this is a really slow growth. Like, we're going to get nowhere with this kind of growth. And so I finally just decided, especially with everything, about 6 months before COVID happened, I decided to go virtual. And then COVID happened, and then it just catapulted my growth. And so what we did was we literally made every single process to be virtual. So for example, when an agent onboards with us, they literally go to chantelray.com/onboarding, and everything they do is done virtually. There's no paper that they need to sign, nothing they need to do. And so we have 4 full-time web developers on staff that all they do is literally that's what they did, was take everything. Now we're already completely virtual. But there's not a process that we have that's not virtual at this point. So that's really the biggest thing. And, my one location, the one that you came to at Laskin Hilltop, that location is 5,000 square feet and cost me 10 grand per month for that location. And that's not counting Wi-Fi and everything that we're doing. And so, and even, now with COVID, people were slowly starting to not come in the office. And it was like we were pulling teeth to get agents to kind of come in the office. They'd come once a week, twice a week, that sort of thing. But I'm like, this is a complete waste of money. We're spending 10 grand a month on this location. This is nuts. That was for one location and we had 7. So I just made the decision that I could take that money and put them into all these processes and put it into web development, put it into virtual, and create a virtual online business. And I just got to the point where I was like, I'm not okay with just being here in Virginia Beach. I want to expand globally, all over the country and outside the US.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's so true, and again, even prior to COVID, it's like the brokerage that I'm at, they have these 2 beautiful 10,000 square foot each buildings, and $300,000 TI build outs, and I'm just gorgeous. And
Right.
they have 2,800 agents in our brokerage just here in Phoenix, right? So insane amounts of agents. I go into the office, and again, this is even pre-COVID, there might be 5 agents in there. It's just
Crazy.
Agents. It's just not what they need or want at this point, and no, I love it. So, a follow-up question to that, because the one thing that we can always know to exist and will exist is change. Yeah, like things are always changing. We always have to adapt, and to be able to change, move, shift, and adapt as a leader, what do you look for? Is it a mindset thing? Is it, because people get so fixated on the way things are and are so resilient to change. So what are some things that suggestions that you'd have for people to be more forward thinking, to be able to adapt and shift and change, and even hopefully ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I just, as a leader, I say that to people all the time. I say, what we're doing now won't last forever. If you don't believe me, let's look at Blockbuster, let's look at taxi cabs, let's look at Kodak. And so when people really realize that, Blockbuster didn't shift, the taxi cab companies did not pivot, Border Books didn't pivot. And so it's like, if you're not changing, we're falling further behind. So you need to surround your people, or surround people around you with people who are not afraid to change. Because if all your leadership and all the people around you and all your admin and all the people are like, no, we're not changing, we don't want to change, then you can't get that flywheel going. And so that's kind of something that I've kind of surrounded myself with people. I'm like, if you don't want to change and don't want to grow and don't want to innovate, this might not be the place for you. As far as our corporate leaders, like as far as our agents, I mean, that's pretty much keeping things the same with them. We're just adding new technology for them. So if they don't love change, it doesn't really like it's not a huge deal, because we try to keep things really, really simple for them and show them the benefits. But yeah, it's just about being around people and constantly looking at what other people are doing in the industry and saying, okay, we've got to follow. You can't stay where you are.
Yep. Love it. And then, I get this question. I'm sure you get this 1,000 times a day. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but a lot, right? With where do we see the real estate market going? Now that the self-quarantine or whatever you want to call it is, things are reopening and so forth. And, most markets have seen a surge in kind of that pent up demand as far as people jumping in and buying right away and so forth, but financial implications historically with something like this, are typically a 6 to 12 month lag, from this. And we're still seeing record unemployment, 2 million layoffs every single week. Right. If this continues, we'll surpass Great Depression unemployment rates. And we don't know if that will be temporary or if those people will be hired back, or what these, we'll get to the point where the first round of PPP money is starting to run out and so forth. And, what are some things of where you see the market may be in 12 months, but more even importantly, what are you doing to prepare?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on, so like right now, last night, the Senate passed a bill that said that the PPP money, instead of just lasting for those 8 weeks, they've now extended it for 24 weeks. Meaning, let's say that a business got $500,000 and they were able to use it for 75%, was able to use it for just payroll and 25% for rent and stuff like that. They've now changed it to 60%, where they can use it for payroll 40%, and they now have 24 weeks that they can use it. So I think that will kind of help. But yeah, I think that there's going to be so many businesses that just will not make it. I mean, we've already seen businesses like JCPenney, Pier 1 Imports, they're going under, like they're not making it. So all those people are going to have to look for another job if they can find one. And then once their unemployment money runs out, that's running out. So I think we're looking at, yes, in the next, it's going to be a lag. I mean, we're very busy. I don't know about you, but we're still very busy right now. Our inventory is very low still. We're starting to get a few houses on the market, but supply and demand, we've got way more buyers. Our listings are down right now. But I think that our economy is going to really take a hit, I think, in the next 6 to 12 months. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to just kind of go up and down, and then people are going to, it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down, and then it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down. And then I think it's really going to go down after a bit, once we finally catch up from all this, because the government can't keep, throwing out more money. It's going to get to the place, like right now we're all okay because, there's businesses getting $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 in PPP money that's sustaining them.
Yeah. At the end of the day, stimulus money can't create cash flow. It can't create jobs.
Right.
Right. So at some point, it kicks the can down the road. And I heard a statistic the other day that 1 in 6 businesses here in America cannot go beyond 30 days without making a profit. So in 30 days of a loss, they're insolvent. And, what are some things that you've done to cut expenses and to make sure that you're able to not just survive, but thrive? Because you and I have also we were around in the Great Recession and both did very well during those times. So I know that you're very prepared for, hoping for the best, planning for the worst, so what are some things that you've done to be able to prepare for that with cutting expenses and so forth?
Yeah. So out of our 7 locations that we currently have, we own 2 of the buildings outright, and then we're renting the other 5. And so as the leases go up on all those other 5 locations, we're not renewing them. So the good news is by January 1st, all 5 of those locations, their leases will be completely up. So one will be up in 2 months, one will be up in 4 months, so forth. So as those locations go, we're moving all those virtual, and then we're keeping 2 of our locations. And that'll be kind of our hub, and where everything, kind of our corporate office will be one, and then one will be our regular, kind of location for agents to come in and out. But the whole point is we don't want agents working in the office anymore. We're creating that company. So that right there in itself is saving massive amounts of money. The other thing that we did was we went through and we gave our staff some bonuses to find things that they could cut out. So one of the things that we do is we do a President's Club trip for all of our agents, where we take them to Cancun, or we take them to just some tropical place that's all inclusive. And one of the ways that you can do it is if you save the company $25,000 over the course of the year, you get to go. And then if you save the company $50,000, you get to bring someone with you. So like bring your spouse or whatever. And so what we'll do, like, let's say someone saved $2,000 per month. They found a program that we could build in-house that we're not spending that money for. 2,000 times 12, that's $24,000. So they would, one more thing, and they would get to go on the trip, right? So that's like we had two of our web developers went on our trip last year, but it's just every single month we kind of go through the P&Ls and we bring it to our staff and go, okay, what are we cutting from this? What are we using? What are we not? And we saved a ton of money. I mean, we went through probably 6 months ago and just realized how much stuff we weren't using. And the other piece that we did is constantly looking at our ROI on everything that we're doing. And we actually got our web developers to create it. So I'll give you an example. With our inside sales department, we put in their salary of how much they were making. We put in exactly how much how many appointments each one of them set. And then we looked at how much we were spending on marketing and decided, okay, out of these inside sales agents, which one of those are actually bringing in a positive ROI, and just doing that for every single piece of our department. And some things is better to outsource, So that's where you have to go, okay, are we able to do it in-house, or are we able to outsource it?
Yep. Love it. And then, as you're, well, not making this move virtual, sounds like you've been at this for, 8 months now, making these moves. And, a lot of team leaders or brokerage owners, they have a concern about how it could affect culture. How do you know if your people are working, and just those little things like that, keeping them accountable. And I know that your culture's off the charts, right? And you drive a great culture, but also a tight ship, right? Like your people are productive. And what are some things that you've done or recommendations that you give for somebody that has maybe that limiting belief of, man, if we go virtual, our culture's going to go shot. How do I hold my people accountable and so forth?
Yeah. So, I think accountability is one of those words that nobody wants to hear. And I believe that everyone needs accountability. And if you think about it, like LeBron James has a trainer that he meets with to make him better, faster, and to keep him accountable for what he needs to do. And so when people say they don't need accountability, what they're really saying is they don't want anyone doing that for them. They don't want you to help move the needle forward, And so what we do for our staff, every person in our staff, we have them do 3 commitments every single week. And so we say, no matter what, these are the three things that we want you to accomplish each week. And so we make them make really smart goals, things that are, measurable and, specific, measurable and actionable goals. And so we say, okay, you write them down and we hold you accountable to doing those three things. And one of the things that we do is we say, we want you to try to hit each week. Some weeks you'll hit 3 out of 3, but over the course of 3 weeks, we want you to hit 2 out of 3 of those times. We want you to win. So I have a tennis coach. I love tennis. I'm a big tennis player. And I was seeing my tennis coach, and one of the things that I said to him, I said, how's your daughter doing in tennis? And he's like, she's not doing good. And I was like, why? You're the tennis coach. She should be amazing. He said, what I did was, she was a level 4.0. And I put her in the 4.5, and then she lost. She kept losing every game. And then I brought her back down to a level 4.0, and then she lost there, even though she was a 4.0, but her confidence was so bad. And so what we tell people is, you want to be winning. He said, if you know you're in the right tennis league, you should be winning 2 out of every 3 times. And what that means is that if every time you play a tennis match, and you're in that level, if you're winning 3 out of 3 every single time, you're not in the right level. Like, you need to move up. If you're winning 0 out of 3, now your self-confidence is going kaput. So you need to go down so that you can build up that confidence. And so that's kind of what we tell people is, like, 1 week you should be 3 out of 3. The next week you should be 3 out of 3. But then the following week you should be like 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3 that you're hitting, so that you're stretching yourself on those commitments and that you're growing. But we are really big on those goals and commitments, because what happens is, that you get busy with this, you get busy with this, but you're saying no matter what. And we do that. We do a daily stand up with our corporate people, the same thing. Like, what are the 3 things you're accomplishing today? And we do weekly ones. And then we also do quarterly ones. So we do weekly, daily, and we also do quarterly for them. And just, that's what it's about, is keeping yourself focused on, this is what I'm getting done today. I don't care what else happens. At the beginning of the day, we do that daily stand up to go, I'm getting these 3 things done. Even if the place burns down,
Yep. Love it. So then, one of the difficult things about growing a team or brokerage is, getting the agents and the teammates to take ownership and to act like owners inside the organization. So, how do you shift that mindset where it's more of a togetherness, right? Versus, a lot of agents operate, they're independent contractors, but they almost operate from an independent mindset of it, and have that separation. How do you get them to act like owners and have that we're in this together mindset?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did was we created not a profit share, a revenue share plan for them. So one, for them to recruit other agents to our company. Because what we used to have is a mindset where, because we gave people leads, they wanted to get more and more and more leads. So they weren't attracting other people, because they thought, okay, if I attract another agent to the company, I'm going to get less leads. And so we kind of tried to shift the mindset a little bit to saying, okay, we've moved our mentality from being a team to a company and a brokerage where, we're going to give you some referrals here and there, but that's not going to be, some agents get a ton, but, as we move across the country, they're going to get a few referrals here and there, and they have the call center, but we don't want them hanging their hat completely on that. And so we want them shifting to a revenue share model. And so we've created it where they get, every time they recruit someone, they get 5% of company dollar, and then created a downline where they create 3% on the second and then 2% on the third person. But then where it really gets big is when they go to the second, once they've hired 5 agents, then it's going to double. So they get 10% on every person that they bring in. And then as you go to 10 people that you hire into the company, it just doubles. So they could literally make 25% of company dollar for every person that they recruit. And then we also have a way for them to lead and manage people. And so they get a percentage of everyone they bring in. So speaking of saving money, this is one of the things I did. So again, back to this old model that I had where I had a brick and mortar and I had 70, I was paying the manager of each one of those office a base salary of $70,000, plus they got a percentage of the profit share, plus they got a percentage for every person that they recruited. So our managers were making somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000 per person that they were, or per manager. Well, now the way they make money is they make money on it only based on company dollar. That's another way that I've changed it, where when they win, I win. But now I'm not feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got $70,000 salary here, 70,000 base salary here, all these offices with all these base salaries. I've now made it where they get a percentage of company dollar. I was listening to this guy talk probably a couple of years ago, and I thought it was so good. But I think one of the things people do wrong is they give everybody these big, gigantic salaries, and then they just are fat and happy, and they don't ever get it where they want to win, and they lose that hunger because they get a little fat and happy. And so what his suggestion is that you should always pay people basically on a 33% way, meaning like if you're going to pay someone a salary, let's say you want them to make $100,000. If they're doing an amazing job, you would say, okay, I'm paying you $33,000 as your base salary, just so you feel comfortable. You're not, worried. You're making $33,000. Then if you're doing an okay job, you're making another $33,000 on top of that, right? But now if you're crushing it and you're really hitting your goals that I really want you to hit, now you're making another $33,000. And so that way you have bonuses, and, if you hit this, then you get this. And if you hit this, and you line that up so that you say to him, look, you're going to make $100,000 this year, but you're not getting it for just sitting on your butt and doing nothing. And so now I've created the model that is so perfect because our managers make money when they're recruiting. So what would happen before is I'd have a managing partner. They were making, even though their base salary was $70,000, maybe they were making $150,000 a year. But this month they didn't, just only recruited one or two agents, weren't really crushing it, and then I'd have to like write them up and then be like, you know what you need to do. You need to push harder. And it was just such a nightmare. And now I'm so obsessed with the model I've created, because it's like when you recruit people, when you can recruit and manage people, and you can make, with the plan I have, is you can make almost 50% of company dollar. If you get into a high category, you're crushing it. But now I've made it so that when I win, you're winning. But if you're slacking, I'm not sitting there like as one of the leaders writing you up. It's like, all right, if you're happy with the money you're making, you're happy with that kind of money you're making. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I love it.
So
yep.
I just love that. And so that's the kind of company I want to build, is like, I don't want to micromanage you. You can make as much money as you want to make. Even our brokers are the same thing. Our brokers that we had managing the offices, they used to make a salary. And now we've changed it to where we say the brokers get 3% of company dollar. But for them, that ends up being a lot of money that they're getting for each of those offices. And they're making probably double what they're making before. But then it still alleviates me of the risk, because let's say 6 months from now, we, really tank, or a year from now that the market dives. I've alleviated myself of having this high overhead with all these salaries. When I win, you win, and you're going to win even bigger, because when we're winning. But when we're losing, I'm paying you based on company dollar. So it alleviates a lot of that risk for me as well.
Yeah. One of my mentors, Darren Hardy, he's always preaches something very similar, where it's make that base salary where it's uncomfortable for them to get by on, right? But then allow them to make a ton of money but off of bonuses that incentivizes where everybody's winning together. And it's brilliant. So then, question with that is, because obviously when you had to shift that model, you had to have some conversations, and some people may not like those conversations. Or so if a broker owner or team leader's listening to this and they're like, oh, I need to go to that transition, and maybe they're paying that person that $100,000, right? And they want to, how do you successfully have that conversation?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say before I answer that is that this is a mantra I always say, and that is, if everybody is responsible, then no one is responsible. So, and a lot of people might be like, what is she talking about? But I'll give you a real life example. So in our web department, we have 4 guys in that department. And what we used to do is we would say, okay, here's all the things we need the web department to do. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And so I'd ask for something done and it wasn't finished and I was getting so upset. And so I went back and I was like, well, what's going on? And so we'd have a meeting with the whole web department and the guy would be like, well, I thought Daniel was doing that. And he's like, well, I thought Raymond was doing that. And it's like, well, I thought Bill was doing that. It's just everybody would be pointing fingers, And so, I had 2 different people working on a project and I gave it to both of them as a group. Again, same thing happened. And it would be like, I would be thinking, she's like, oh, I thought you were doing that. And so again, you have to have a meeting where you literally know when we're putting this down, instead of now when we have the web department working on stuff, we would say, Dan, okay, that's part of your commitments, right? At the end of the week, we know Daniel's doing A, B, C. We know Raymond's doing E, F, G, and holding those people accountable. And what we do is it makes it real easy because we have an automated system where this is for our corporate staff, but our corporate staff puts those commitments in the computer. And at the end of the week, we check off, did they complete those items? I would say my biggest frustration in business overall, and I would say I would ask every business owner I know, is that they'd be like, someone's not doing what they need to do. It's just a constant frustration. Like, you want this done, and for some reason they're doing this instead. And it would be like, well, why didn't you get that done? Oh, I was so busy because I was doing this and this and this and this. And then you'd be like, I know, but this was number 1 priority. This solves all those problems because we're both on the same page. Josh, you're making a commitment. You're typing it in the computer, right? You're even getting email reminders that tell you what those commitments are. We even have it on the wall. We have it on the commitment and it gets an email reminder. Everybody's at their desk, they have a dry erase that says, these are my 3 commitments I'm getting done. So then at least, even if they're farting off the rest of the time, these are the 3 things they're committing to doing. And so that is really, really, really has saved me a lot of hassle. And not that we've got it perfect, but it's helped so much. But what was the first part of the question that you were asking?
Is how to navigate those conversations in the most
so that's where I was going to. So then what happens is it gives you a score. It's all automated. So if each week you're falling below 2, remember you should be hitting 2 out of 3 on a monthly basis. It's basically on a 3-week basis. Like, this week you might hit 3 out of 3. Second week you might hit 3 out of 3. But if the 3rd week you're hitting 0 out of 3, now your percentage has fallen below that 2 out of 3. And so that's where we have that discussion where we say, it's really important for us as a company, A, to do what you say you're going to do, and 2, to keep your commitments of what you're going to do. And so it's not subjective anymore. Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. We have proof right here. That you're going to get written up as an employee if you're not hitting that. The other thing we did one of the things we do, even though we're a virtual company, we still offer admin support all over the country. Meaning that when we hire, let's say we open up an office in Texas. If we open up an office in Texas, we're going to have a virtual office administrator there, and we pay them per task that they do. So again, I'm not having to pay. Like, that was one of the biggest problems we used to have. I'm glad that I mentioned that. So as we had all these branch offices, right? We'd have a branch office administrator at each office. We're paying somebody anywhere from $15 to $18 an hour to do all the transaction coordination and everything that we needed. Well, let's say in the summertime, they were slammed, right? But come in the wintertime, we're now paying these people and they might be only working really 15 hours a week because we're slow and they don't have the workload that they need. So that's why we went to a virtual office administration. We create this whole back end that when you want a listing in, we now have all these virtual employees. When you need a listing entered, guess what? You press in a button, you fill it out, and they'll do it for you. They hit accept and we pay per task. Again, think about the amount of money that we're saving because we're only paying these people per task that need to be done. So in the summer and in winter, summer we might be paying more, but in the winter we're paying a whole lot less.
Yeah, love it. So then how do you decipher what is important? I shouldn't say important. What is a must have or must do in-house versus what items can be outsourced?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me, I'll give you an example of what we outsourced. When we first started, we kept every single listing on a spreadsheet and we printed it off every morning with the single showing instructions. And we had a single cell phone for the showing line. We just set up showings for our agents and every single admin was in charge of it. And they knew that they even had to take the phone with them if they went to the bathroom. I mean, the cell phone, it was so silly. This was like, back, gosh, I don't know, 12 years ago. But then we obviously advanced from that, but we then found a company called Showing Time where we paid per listing to have a third party handle this. And it was such a good move for us because they work 24/7. Our listings never missed a showing call. And we actually offer that service to all of our agents wherever they are in the country. But again, that's a scalable option. And the clients can confirm with them via app, via text message. And so I just look at it and say, is this part of our core competency? Like, is this something we should be doing? This other company does this process so much better for us. They have the showings via app, via text, via email, whenever they prefer. It just made sense for us to outsource that. So we just look at every process that we have and say, is this exactly part of our core competency? So the things that we outsource basically are, we buy KV Core for all of our agents. And the reason why we do that is because they can do it everywhere in the country. Like, it doesn't matter so we used to have Boomtown. And when we had Boomtown, every time you had to buy a new territory every time. KV Core is something that we have for, it doesn't matter. If you're in Texas or wherever, that they've done a great job of being able to do it countrywide. So brokerment is another thing that we outsource. Showing Time is another thing that we outsource. But then our team platform that we have that houses all of this, we definitely do in-house. That was probably one of the best things I've ever done, is to create this internal back end where it is literally iPhone friendly. Like and what we say is a 7-year-old can do it or a 70-year-old can do it. Like, you could be like, okay, I need this, click. Because that's one of the things that bogs people down so much is like we have a way that every question anytime we get a question more than twice, we've now created it where we put it on this back end wiki system is what we call it. And so let's say the question is, how do I find out, what my payroll benefits are? Okay, great. We don't answer your question first. We say, great, what I want you to do is go into Wiki, and Wiki will have you type in, what are my payroll benefits? You click that button, it'll have a video for you, and it has that. Because think about how many times your managers and stuff is getting bogged down with answering these same questions over and over and over again. So that's another really great platform that we've built. I mean, we've spent so much money developing this back end system that is one click of a button. you can do almost anything, and it's saving our managers so much time.
Yeah. What are a few things that maybe you tried to outsource where you're like, look, these need to be in-house? Like we've, like maybe it's an ISA role, maybe it's a transaction coordinator, maybe, but what are some of the things where you're like, dude, like, what are the key in-house roles that you would say don't even attempt to try to outsource?
Yeah, for us, we did try to outsource the inside sales department for a little bit, and it just did not work for us. So what we're actually doing with our inside sales department, because one of the things we looked at is our ROI on our inside sales, and it's not good. And so we were like, oh, this is a disaster. And so one of the moves we're going to make is we're not going to grow our inside sales department. We're actually going to, as people leave, we're going to just kind of condense it down. And so what we're going to do is when a person calls in and they say, they're going to get their name, their phone number, their email, any of that information, but then we're going to take that lead and we're going to forward it on to an agent to set an appointment. And one of the things we used to do is we would set the appointments for the agent, and we realized it was taking up so much manpower. Because what was happening is, a perfect example, this happened just last week. An agent had our inside sales, because we have multiple locations still until it's going virtual, but they set an appointment to meet somebody at the Chesapeake office. Well, the guy works out of the Newport News office, so he thought it was at the Newport News office. He didn't read the big letters that said Chesapeake office, but the client went to the Chesapeake office. He was at the Newport News. Now they're calling inside sales saying, oh, the guy didn't show up. I mean, think about just all that transaction. And then it's just being the middleman. And so there's benefits of the inside call center, and we want it so that we can respond quickly. But when we actually set the appointments, we're having the agent set the appointment and the time, and we believe that's gonna work better.
Yeah, love it. So how do you know if you have the right people or the wrong people, or if it's a situation where it's the right person, but maybe they're just in the wrong seat?
Yeah, so this is just something that we're constantly working on, but I think as you grow, you realize that the person that you had back then may not be able to, when you were 10 people, they might not be able to be the right person when you're 200 people. And so one of the things that we've done is just looking at positions as a whole to first see if we need that position. I'll tell you, we had a full-time in-house bookkeeper that we had that did all of our P&Ls and all of that. And we were paying them over $80,000 a year for that. We outsourced that position, first of all, and we've saved massive amounts of money by doing that. But just, you need to really assess these seats quarterly to see if you have the right person. And for us, this is the question I ask. Is there anyone in your organization currently working for you that you wouldn't rehire if they came in and applied again? If that answer is yes, like, yeah, I would not rehire that person, that's a major red flag. Like, you need to look at them and say, okay, they either need to be coached, they need to be warned, or they need to move on. And I know that sounds harsh, but if you wouldn't rehire them again, why do they still work for you? And so, I love the organizational chart that it's kind of like a T like this, where you separate it into 4 quadrants and you look at the people you have and you say, okay, are they highly productive? And if they have our high core values, well, they're a winner, they're staying with you, right? But there's other people who have low productivity, but they have high core values. Like, we have a guy right now that's with us like that. I'm telling you, this guy is sunshine. He is the happiest guy. He's been with us for a few years. And he won the Sunshine Award at our awards banquet last year, because he's amazing. Everyone loves him. But his productivity is really, really low. So what we're doing with him is we're going to kind of coach him, and we're going to say, look, you can still work at our company, but we're going to probably have to turn you into a 1099 employee because your productivity is not where you need to be. Your level of production is really good, but we're going to pay you based on it because his job is very easy to make on a per production level, and say, look, you can make as much or as little as you want, but we can't pay you this salary anymore because of where you're at. And you're not getting things done. So you're either going to have to get this many things done per day. Otherwise, we've got to move you to a 1099 model. And, again, you just kind of look at that and go, okay, are they high productivity? And if they're low productivity and low core values, then guess what? You're getting rid of them immediately. Like they're a cancer to your organization. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're out of here. But the hard ones are the low productivity and high that was the low productivity and high core values. I just talked about that because it's like, this is such a person that you love so much, right? And you want to be with them. So that one, you just got to kind of try to coach and try to increase productivity. And, they've really embedded your core values and you want to try and coach them up, but you've got to give them deadlines. You've got to say, look, we've got to get to here by this date. And if you can't, then we've got to make that hard decision to part ways with them. But I feel like, we've done that a couple times and had to part ways with people, but I feel like it was like a weight lifted off of everyone because other people produced more and we had production go up for everyone. And it's hard to let those people go, but you have to just say to them, like, look, we love you, but we're not making this decision for you to go. You know what the expectations are. We're giving you ample time to hit that. But if you aren't hitting that, we love you. We'll still go out to lunch with you. You'll still be Facebook friends, but we can't have you work for us, or we have to move you into another capacity, which is the 1099 role.
Yeah. How long do you give? Like, let's just say you've discovered that the productivity is not there. Like what is the time frame? And is it hey, we're going to take it week by week? Is it a 30-day maybe probation period? Like
we do it week by week up to 30 days. So we say, like, for example, let's say with our inside sales department. So our inside sales department people, we want them setting anywhere between 5 to 7 appointments. And obviously we're moving out of that transition. They're going to just be transferring calls soon. But with that, let's say that was your goal, was them to set 5 appointments per day. And let's say they're currently setting 3. We would say to them, okay, this week, we need to see you set 5. If by the end of this week, you can't set 5, like if we're side by side coaching you, giving you what you need to, then you're done. Like, you know what I mean? But maybe even if you made progress, move to 4, we'd give you another week, but we really try to, we usually know, because we've spent a lot of time coaching them and moving them up and trying to get them to where they need to. I would say 2 weeks is about the longest that we'll do. It's anywhere from 2 weeks to a month is where we put it. But we do try to give a weekly goal and then we give a monthly goal. But if you can see the writing on the wall, like after 1 week, like that's funny because I got into an argument with my inside sales manager and she was like, well, you're only giving them a week to improve. We're like, the person was setting 2 for the last month. They were only setting 2 appointments each week. And I was like, the goal is 5. Every week they're at 2. This week, if they're not at 4, they're gone. Well, you're only giving them a week. Yes, this is not a good fit. Everyone else is doing 7 and 8. They're at 2. Why are we wasting our time? She was like, okay. But, she really liked the person. And, you just have to go. You have to think logically, like, we still love you. Have them come over and have tea and crumpets, but this is not a good fit.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, one of the things that impresses me about you at such a high level is you execute at a higher level than really anybody I see, right? Like, boom, you make up your mind. This is the path that we're going. And it's just like, bam, 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 rapid fire execution. And, what is the key to your personal execution? And also, what are the same things that you do to make sure that your team is carrying over those same execution standards?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that you need to make sure that once you come up with ideas, I'll give you a perfect example. Every week, our people have to listen to a podcast. And so if you're looking for really good leadership podcasts, obviously Josh's are amazing. I would listen to all of those, and we listen to a bunch of them all the time. But if you go to chantelray.com/podcast, we have some different leadership podcasts on there as well for you to listen to. And each week we tell the managers, you have to listen to a podcast and tell us what you got out of it, but you need to execute on that idea. And so, for example, what we used to do is everyone just listened to the podcast and they would just tell you what they got out of the podcast. But they never said, what are we going to take from this podcast and actually implement? And so we kind of give a gift card at the end of the week after all of our managers and leaders listen. But it's not just for what did you get out of it, it's what are we implementing? So you might say at the end of this podcast, maybe someone listened to this podcast and said, you know what idea I really got out of it was having the 3 commitments every single week. Well, if they were the web developer, they would say, look, this is what I got out of Chantel's podcast. Let's implement 3 things that everyone has to do each week, but I'm the web developer. I'm going to create that page, actually create it. And here it is. It's on our website now. Click here and everyone can enter it in. That's what the culture we're trying to produce. And so we'd make a big deal about it. Like Daniel, they're like, great job, Daniel. You did a great job. You listened to that podcast, you actually implemented it, and now we're rewarding you for doing it. And so that's just breeding into your culture saying, we have to take action on what we listen to. We can't just, a lot of times I see people in meetings and they're like, they vomit with all these great ideas. But at the end of the meeting, you have to say, okay, from this, we had all A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these great ideas. Which one are we actually implementing? We're implementing idea number C. Great. Now, who's going to be responsible? We have one head cheese who's going to be responsible to make sure idea C gets implemented. Great. Now, who do you need? Susie, you're going to be in charge of that. Sorry. Susie, you're in charge of that. You're going to be putting that into place. Great. Now, with that being said, Susie, who else do you need to get to make this action? And let's create specific actionable steps for you right now so that you can make it happen. And then next week we'll revisit it. Did we actually put that in place?
Yep. No, I love that. Nothing drives me crazier as a company owner and a leader. And this has been a leadership flaw of mine, but when you have people showing up at the office, but each and every day, now they'll be great executors, but each and every day it's like they're just waiting for their instructions, right? Like they're not thinking about growth and expansion and taking their own initiatives. It's just they're just waiting for their instructions, sitting around waiting for their instructions. And once you give them to them, boom, it's good. But that becomes so freaking exhausting as a leader to have to deliver those instructions every single day. So love it.
But that's why having them listen to, like, they are having to listen to a podcast for their department every day to giving those new ideas, because you almost need somebody to kind of trigger those ideas, like you listen to a 30-minute or 45-minute, like if I was an agent and I was listening to this podcast, I would implement for you guys to have Josh Smith, like his podcast is required. I don't care which one you listen to it. You own a real estate team or a real estate firm, it's required that you listen to Josh Smith's podcast every week. And then from that, listen to it. Because like a lot of these other leadership podcasts, they're not real estate specific. So you can get a few ideas, but with yours, because it's so real estate specific, I mean, we're having our team listen to your podcast as well and going, what did you get out of that? How are we going to implement it? What are we going to do? And really, you've got to make a big deal about those people. Like when we go around and ask each person to, what did you get out of it? We don't want you to regurgitate what you heard in the podcast. What you're saying is, how are we implementing what we heard? That's all. And we have to stop people. We say, okay, you're just repeating the podcast to us. We all listen to the podcast. You don't need to regurgitate that to us. What we're asking is, from what you listen to, what are you going to actually implement?
Yep. I love that. Yeah, I was listening to a interview the other day with Elon Musk, and he was talking about how they don't punish for failure, but they do punish for lack of innovation. But they heavily also reward for and celebrate those that are innovating, that are constantly trying new things and new ideas and coming forth with those. And yeah, I love it. So kind of switching gears slightly, most teams, and this holds true for brokerages, it's like most brokerages don't ever get above 50 agents, and teams usually, stay small and so forth. What do you think the biggest reason is that so many teams and brokers stay so small and don't continue to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to look at every single one of your processes. So when we made the decision that we were not going to be a brokerage just in the state of Virginia or just in Hampton Roads, we had to really kind of look with a brand new lens and go, with every process we have, will this work in California? Will this work in Chicago? And how much cash flow are we going to have to pay to make that work? And so we had to change different systems to say, okay, we've got to really look at this with a different pair of eyes. And so for us, some of the things like what I talked about is like, we had to look at what were the bottlenecks that were stopping us from being able to grow. And so for us, some of them were, our website needed to change, we needed to take every process. So a perfect example is when an agent would onboard, we had this paper packet that they would have to fill out. Well, that's not going to work if we don't have locations anymore. So we just sat in a room and went through every process. And we said, how do we make everything virtual? And how do we make it work for every single state? Like even going back, looking at it, we had some of our training that was based on this state. Well, that's not going to work because California has different contracts. So we had to make it where everything. So when you click on our website now, when you're looking for a broker, you first click on broker and then you select your state. And then when you select your state, then it'll tell you where you need to go. So it's really just a brainstorming meeting of going, what is going to work and what's not going to work. My favorite analogy that I give people, it's funny because it just came to light. My church is not meeting because we meet at a school and the school's not letting them meet. So I was getting tired of doing virtual church every Sunday. So my friend was like, well, want to come to my church? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it was this small church. It only had like 60 people. And the pastor stood up and said, okay, we're going to now pray for Billy Bob, who is, having surgery on Friday. We're going to pray for Carol, whose sister's in the hospital, and started rattling off all these prayer requests. And I give that analogy to all my people all the time. I wish I had it on video. I think I might go back to that church on Sunday and just video that portion. But I always say, like, if you want to be a church of 10,000, could you possibly say, okay, we're now going to pray for Susie and Billy and Tim and da-da-da-da. So if you want to be a church of 10,000, you have to act like the church, and you can't do that anymore because that particular process won't work. It'll work now, but why have that as a process? And that's what you have to do, is get every person in your company on board, going through your process and going, if we want to be that company, then we got to act like that company.
Yep. I love that. That's awesome. So speaking of processes and systems, as well as policies and so forth, what are some of the best, whether it's systems, process, or policies that you have made?
So I would say the biggest thing that we have is that back internal site that I was telling you about, because it's like, if you have any problem, like, this site handles everything, and it's made so simple. Like, you want to process your commission, it's like this big button that says commission. Like, you can be a complete idiot and like, the buttons are this big. They look just like the iPhone. We've created it just like the iPhone so that, like, it's pretty user friendly, and every process is like, do you have a listing? Yes. Like, it's just, you ask questions and you almost can't fail at it. Even people who are 70 years old that aren't good at tech. We have this one guy in our company. He's probably, I hope I'm getting this right, but I'm not even going to say his name just in case, I'm going too high on his age, but he's probably like 65, and he's such a cheerleader for our company. And he just is like, he'll put on we have Workplace by Facebook, and he'll put like, oh, I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this. But we've made all the technology. He's running with it. If you are halfway tech savvy, you will be able to do all of our processes with no problem. So I'd say that is the best thing that you can possibly do, is be able to have access to that kind of system where it makes it so easy for any question. You don't have to be constantly answering questions as a manager.
Yeah, no, love it. Powerful stuff. And I know we're going long on time here, but I wanted to dive into, you've recently made some big moves, big shifts, where now you're taking your real estate company national, global. What led to the change? And can you just talk to us, for those that are watching and listening, we have real estate agents from all over that listen to this, about what are some of the differentiators between your company versus others, and then we'll make sure that they have a way to get in a hold of you as well if they want to talk to you, because you guys are now everywhere.
Yeah, we are. Basically, someone told me about EXP Real Estate probably about a year ago, and I was looking at that company, and there's some things that I really love about it. They do, everything that they did, I was like, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this. But the biggest piece that I didn't like was that they didn't have leadership, and they didn't have admin support. Everything else I really liked. And I didn't like that you had to have a broker, like you had one broker for the state or two brokers for the state, and you're like calling this guy, getting on a web call with them. So the way that I fix that is to say, okay, how could we have a virtual company but still be able to have the admin support, like I explained to you earlier, of how you can still have that admin support, and you can still have, we call them managing partners and circle leaders. So your first direct report is your circle leader, and then you have a managing partner that's someone there to coach, lead, and mentor you. Because I think EXP is a great company, but I think that's what they're missing is leadership, admin support. And so we took kind of all the best parts of EXP, but then added some pieces that they were really missing. And so we've created a revenue share program. We've created a way for people to get shares of the company and be able to earn money that way. And I think that one of the other downsides of EXP is that they've kind of watered down the shares so that it's like, oh, you have black brown hair and black brown eyes on Tuesday with curly hair, you get a share. You know what I mean? Like you get a share. It's like Oprah, right? And so creating a share profit model where that it actually makes sense, where it's not really watered down, that you can actually earn shares in the company and have that revenue share with that multi-level marketing to be able to get rewarded for hiring agents. I love that. I think it's brilliant, but also to add the leadership of it as well. So they can go to chantelray.com/careers, or they can email me direct at chantel@chantelray.com, or one of our managers at mp@chantelray.com. We'd love to kind of set up a one-on-one meeting to see if it's the right fit.
Yep. Love it. Absolutely love it. And we'll make sure wherever you guys are watching and listening, we will make sure to have all those links right below so you can check that out, get in touch with it, see if it's a fit for you. And so you guys are officially, are you outside of the United States at this point, or at this point?
Other states, yeah. So we've gone outside of the
all throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, love it. Such powerful stuff. And as always, those watching, listen, I know I end every podcast with this, but it's so important to understand that information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information isn't power. It's taking that information, executing on it, as Chantel talked about in today's podcast, And that execution gives you the power to go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Chantel shared so many amazing pieces of advice with us today. Make sure that you take something that you learn, execute immediately on it, and again, go out there and create that life that you know you want and deserve. And as always, we truly appreciate all your support. And Chantel, truly appreciate you taking time out of your extremely busy day to be here with us. This has been amazing.
Yeah, and I hope that people really implement that of having their team listen to your podcast every single week. I think that would be a game changer for them, and figuring out what are they going to implement. There's always one nugget that you can get and implement from each podcast that you listen to and that you're interviewing, and you're doing such an amazing job. You're having the best guests on. I love your show, so keep rocking it out.
Yeah, I truly appreciate it. It means a lot. You know what's funny is I've never made my teammates listen to this. So
what?
I know.
You better be implementing that.
I know. That's definitely something.
Starting today.
Starts today, 100%. All right, you guys. Well, thank you again, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.